All right, so I want to go over the ClearTalk integration with GoHighLevel and how it works and how we trigger calls, how we create a feedback loop so we're not calling people back that we shouldn't be, and just the overall concept of it. So if we look at what's happening here, I'm just going to explain it here first, and we'll look a little bit further down. So we are looking into GoHighLevel's contacts. We have a native integration, we have a direct API. And what happens is anything with a tag, a certain tag, right, we specify that tag, will get called. And the way that's done is in the campaign, we will say anything with this tag in between these hours will get called. Right? So we'll do that. Then we'll assign an agent to a campaign. So we say anything with this tag will get called by this agent. Right? So this call will happen. And then obviously something's going to come out of that. There's going to be a call outcome or a ClearTalk call outcome. And either that outcome is going to be, positive, negative, or neutral. So let's say, for example, the prospect says, great, I love it, let's book an appointment. Obviously, we don't want to call that person back, right? So we don't want to call them again. Let's say there's a voicemail. We want to call again, right? Try to get them on the line again. Let's say they said, call me back or follow up with me or any of those we want to call again. So the power of this is that we can set an agent to call all of these contacts, specify when they're called, how many times they're called, and based on what outcome, how we call them back, how we determine to call them back or not call them back. So this is just obviously a general overview. I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper. So in terms of how we actually determine this aspect, how we create this feedback loop, I'll show you what's happening in GoHighLevel. So first, I'll show you how we are calling, right? So we are using this workflow, and I'll dive into this workflow more on a deeper level in a separate video. But these tags right here are triggering off the calls, right? So every time it gets tagged, the call happens. Every time this gets tagged, call happens. Gets tagged again, call happens. Gets tagged again, call happens. So again, the question becomes like, okay, it gets called, an appointment gets booked, we don't want to call them again, how do we remove it? So now we look at this. We have our inbound webhook. So basically every single time that a call happens, we need to make sure that we map this. So this is something you have to do. It's a manual action. You'll connect this. This will look different once it's connected, right? It's not connected currently. But when it is, the call will come in. It's going to find the contact. It's going to update what happened on the call. So it'll say either an appointment was booked, a follow-up, disposition happened, a voicemail, you hit a voicemail, they asked to not be called again, it's a wrong number, or it's not qualified. Those are all of the possible dispositions. So when one of those happens, it's going to go down here and there's conditional logic. So depending on what happened, we're going to go down this path, and any of these outcomes, whether it's an appointment booked, a do not call, a wrong number, or a not qualified, we don't want to call these people back, right? There's no reason to. Any of these, a follow-up or a voicemail, we do want to call back, right? So if it's one of the dispositions we don't want to call back, we want to make sure that they are removed from the workflow that is calling them, that is causing the calling, right? So remember when I showed over here, any of these tags, anytime it gets tagged, it gets called. So what will happen is we will remove the contact from this workflow so that it doesn't go down this and get tagged. It doesn't go down and get called, right? And you have to make sure that you are removing it. Let's say you add a third workflow. You need to make sure that you add that right here so they are getting removed from that third workflow so they're not getting called again. So very important. That's the feedback loop. That's how it works. Hopefully this general overview makes sense. I'll dive in a little bit deeper on each piece in other videos.